Okay, here we go. First,
oh my God,
we are gonna make a brisket. We're gonna cook a brisket for Memorial Day. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna make a dry rub. Now this is my recipe for a dry rub. A little bit Southwestern Texas style dry rub. Should be not spicy, but it's gonna put a little bit of flair in you too. All right. For you that don't know what a brisket is, this is a brisket.
oh my God.
Right? A brisket is basically if you look at a cow, its chest portion, that's a brisket. All right, the meat, and it's the chest portion right at the tip of the front of where the ribs meet. The meat is tough because there's a lot of muscle up there. So you see the cow it's tough. So the basic rule for a brisket is gotta cook it slow, gotta cook it low. Slow and low, that's the basic rule for a brisket. So how do you pick a brisket? Do you just go random and pick a piece of meat? No. Let's talk about my way of picking up a brisket, and then we can kind of go into what we do with it. All right, for me, the best briskets that I find usually has a real nice fat layer on the back of it. So you can see here, this brisket has a nice big fat layer on the back of it. You know, another good thing about a brisket is that the fat is marbled throughout the meat. So you look here, when I say marbled, I mean that the fat is kind of intertwined throughout the meat. So you see this here. You know, if you get onto the grains, you can see the grain of the meat as it goes this way, and you can see the marbled fat in between. That means that, when I cook this thing, that fat is going to melt, and that's where my flavor is going to come from. Right? I'm going to trim some of this fat off the back here because I don't want all that fat to stop my dry rub from getting through. But you can see also I probably got about a 1/4 inch, to maybe a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch of layer of fat, as it goes through this thing here. So I'm gonna trim off, a lot of this excess fat up here. I'm gonna trim off, and then I'll leave the thin part here. Price for brisket, not really that expensive. Briskets is really a cheap piece of meat when you think about it for the size of it. Comparatively, if you talk about a prime roast this size, you're talking about $80 piece of meat. But this piece of meat here comes out to about maybe $3 a pound. This one here, this particular piece of meat costs about 27 bucks. And when I cook it, it doesn't shrink that much either. So this is a big piece of meat for me and the 4 of us that eat meat. I got one that don't eat meat. So we'll get to that a little bit later.
That's me.
So let's go ahead and get to the dry rub. All right. My dry rub is pretty much a combination of a bunch of different spices that I like. Plus I put a little bit of sweetener in it too. So you can look at it, and I'm gonna tell you what each one of these dry rubs are. I'm gonna tell you a secret to it. You don't have to measure necessarily if you don't want to. I measured out because I know how big a piece of meat that I have. You don't have. If you can season to taste, I would recommend the first time, if you're gonna make a dry rub, that you go in and that you measure out. All right, and we'll talk about my measurements of what I have here. Because I have a 9-pound piece of meat, and I'm gonna coat this thing pretty heavily and let it sit for a couple of days. So all I use is a plastic Tupperware to put my spice in. I got a top over there that I'll take and I'll cover up the spices, and then I'll just dump them in and we'll go along. So let me tell you what I got here. First thing I started off with is I got a cup of sugar, brown sugar. All right, actually it's 2 cups of brown sugar here. So we'll go ahead and dump that in there. All right. I use Kosher Salt. I use Kosher Salt because if you look at the grain, the Kosher Salt grain is a little bit thicker than regular salt, and it sticks to the meat a lot better, and it cooks. It really makes the meat taste real good. Another hint on Kosher Salt: if you just use Kosher Salt on chicken and nothing else, you won't believe how good the flavor is. So we got Kosher Salt. Put that in there with it. All right. Here I'm using chili powder. All right, 2 cups of chili powder. Okay, and dump that in there. Put these out of the way. Here I got a cup of oregano. We'll go ahead and dump that in there. I have 2 teaspoons of garlic. Now you can put onion powder in here too if you want to put onion in there. But because I'm using cayenne pepper, I don't want to garlic it up. I don't want to spice it up too much. So I'm going to use just a regular garlic powder here. So put that in there. This is ground cumin. All right, again about 2 teaspoons of it. Okay, dump that in there. This is celery seed. Now, I'm supposed to use coriander. So this is me experimenting again. You know, and that's what we typically do. Celery seed is what I use on my turkey. It really makes the turkey flavor comes out good. So I don't have any coriander. So guess what I'm gonna do? Put celery seed in there. So I'm done with celery seed. This right here is paprika. All right, I'm using 2 cups of paprika. Dump that in there. I'm using a cup of ground pepper. Now I use coarse pepper because I like, I like the way that it sticks. Coarse pepper and the kosher salt, so I like the way it sticks. So I'm using coarse pepper. Put that in there. And finally, the heat. Now, this right here is 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper, really is a strong pepper. And if you don't want your meats to be that hot, you can cut the number down. You can go to a half a teaspoon, or if you don't want spice at all, don't put it in there. I like it because the way I smoke my meats, it drains some of that spice out. But this is going to really make the flavor come out. So there's 2 teaspoons of pepper. All right. So we got that all mixed in there. So
final product.
Now, just take a fork, get everything, because you really got to get that brown sugar mashed up now. What you're gonna have here when you get everything mixed in here, what you're gonna have is a really nice, flavorful dry rub, and you can use this for anything. You don't have to use this just for the brisket.
Wow.
If I want to use, you hear my wife saying "wow" too. You can put the camera on her since she's running her mouth. So there she is right there.
Don't say it like that.
I should say it like that, huh?
You be nice.
I'll be nice. So you can use this. You really can use this for any kind of meat you're gonna barbecue. All right. The problem with this is because I put sugar in here. You got to be careful because sugar burns. So you really don't want to put this on something you're gonna cook fast, like hamburgers. You don't want to put it on hamburgers. You definitely don't want to put this on chicken. You want to put it on meats that are typically a little bit thicker, meats that you're gonna cook a little bit longer, and and go the distance with. So because of the brown sugar, that's what you want to be careful with. So
this brew that you made, this mix, how fast is it going to burn the meat? If
this won't burn the meat at all, because again, like I said, that's about a 9-pound brisket. I'm gonna cook that brisket for about 9.5, maybe 10 hours. The temperature I'm gonna go is about maybe 220 degree temperature. And I'm gonna use a charcoal smoker with a thermometer on it, and you just regulate the temperature. You regulate your temperature by how many coals you put in. If you need to put some water in there. So there we go. There is my dry rub.
final product.
All right. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a break. I'm gonna come back in a little bit and show you how to get the brisket prepped, and then we'll go ahead and baste it down.